Hello and welcome. I'm Rik Glauert and here's what happened this week. On the first day of the new year, the country's vice presidential candidates took centre stage in a televised debate, where China was the main focus. Vice presidential candidates in Taiwan's upcoming election face off in front of the press and the nation. As the country's number 2, they would be expected to represent Taiwan as it manages tricky relations around the world. And at the top of the debate's agenda, Taiwan's relationship with China, which claims Taiwan as part of its sovereign territory, and its dealings with the United States, Taiwan's biggest backer, which sells the country the military hardware it needs to counter China. Representing the ruling Democratic Progressive Party, or the DPP, Bi Kim Xiao, her team has a strong lead in the polls. A seasoned diplomat and former de facto ambassador to the United States, she said she already has the skills needed to handle complicated geopolitical issues and to keep peace across the Taiwan Strait.
台湾努力和理念相近的国家发展关系，在两岸关系维持稳定和平的现状，这是两岸人民以及国际社会对于台湾所期待的最大公约数。我们更以冷静不躁进、理性不挑衅的态度来应对。
On the other side of the political spectrum, media mogul Zhao Xiaokang is of the main opposition party, the Kuomintang, East Asia's oldest political party. It traces its roots back to China and says Taipei should have closer ties with Beijing. Zhao lashed out at the ruling DPP.
全球关注台湾没错，关注什么？关注台海会不会战争啊？大家都担心台海会不会战争啊？那谁引来台海的战争？那不就是民进党的政策吗？
The wild card for this race is the ticket with businesswoman Cynthia Wu. Her Taiwan's People's Party are running for the presidential office for the first time and say voters don't have to choose between the US and China.
中国的因素一直是在台湾总统候选的重要因素哦。那国民两党一个是靠中，一个是反中，都失去了台湾自主性，这是个国民两党的问题。所以民众党主张，可以合作的就合作，需要的竞争的时候竞争，必须对抗的时候对抗。
Later in the debate, Wu suggested the 3 candidates go eat at a buffet restaurant, saying that this way they could each have what they want, even if they don't agree on everything. But for Taiwan's voters heading to the polls in just 13 days, it's a very different choice, and a decision made more complicated by the question of how to deal with belligerent neighbouring China. Patrick Chen and Rik Glauert for TaiwanPlus. And as Taiwan readies for those all-important elections, the country has seen an uptick in disinformation. The government here has warned of China's efforts to interfere with and influence the vote. I take a look at the people fighting back against China's cognitive warfare. A deep fake video purporting to show Chinese leader Xi Jinping denouncing Taiwan's presidential candidates and saying the country's upcoming elections are futile as he is the rightful leader of the country. It's been debunked by local Taiwan fact-checking organisation Kofacts, but it's already caused upset in the nation, which China claims as part of its territory.
This type of content might make people feel like democracy is useless, election is useless, and what people do is nonsense.
Lee works with more than 2,000 volunteers to find and debunk disinformation and run a chatbot that flags fake news shared on messaging apps. She says disinformation is up 40% ahead of elections. It's often difficult for the general public to determine the veracity of the information they are seeing. The government here has warned that China could be behind the massive amount of disinformation now out there, part of Beijing's attempts to disrupt the election now less than 2 weeks away. Beijing has been known to use a combination of economic coercion, military intimidation, and cognitive warfare like this to threaten self-ruling Taiwan. And their tactics are evolving. Taiwan has seen an uptick in videos, graphics, and memes spreading false information about candidates and parties considered less friendly to China. This content is easier to share and harder to detect.
Well, memes and illustrations are an easy way for people to absorb the information nowadays. We know younger generation, they are now really keen or interested in reading a whole report. So the memes become very, very effective.
But Taiwan is fighting back. Recently, at a temple in central Taiwan, hundreds of people joined disinformation training by a local civil defense group.
觉得很恐怖，我们一定要有这方面的认知啊，才不会被洗脑。
我觉得它是一个很棒的力量，就是让大家意识到我们有自主权，然后我们要怎么样可以防卫，就是替自己做好防卫。
Fact checker Lee publishes her disinformation updates in multiple languages on her website. She wants to share Taiwan's battle with the rest of the world.
The democracy issue and freedom issue is also in common. I think that is also one way to let people feel how Taiwanese people is different from Chinese.
China is stepping up its claims over Taiwan, and leaders here have warned that the country's freedom, democracy and peace are at stake in this upcoming vote. For Taiwanese, the battle for these values is increasingly being fought online. Justin Wu, Alex Chen, Klein Wang and Rik Glauert for TaiwanPlus. For several years, Taiwan has been trying to boost its asymmetric military capabilities. That would make it more difficult for China to successfully attack the nation. As part of our special series on defending Taiwan, Jaime Ocon looks at how the country is increasingly looking to drones as part of that strategy.
Almost a year ago, Taiwan's military made history by using this drone helicopter for the first time in a military exercise. The drone provides ground troops with information from above and helps soldiers become more aware of the battlefield. Even though the aircraft was only used briefly, it signaled a new era in Taiwan's military strategy as it looks to prepare for a possible conflict with China.
I think the way we're seeing that in terms of both the future of warfare, and particularly when you're on the strategic defense like Taiwan, is moving towards larger numbers of lower cost uncrewed systems.
Outnumbered, outgunned, and faced with growing threats from Beijing, the military here is moving towards an asymmetric defense strategy and putting a greater emphasis on technology to close that gap.
Asymmetric capabilities usually refer to especially land-based systems because of their mobility, systems that have a small logistics footprint that is harder for China to target, and also sort of unmanned systems.
China boasts the world's largest navy and threatens to invade Taiwan to enforce its claims over the country. That's why Taiwan is going all out to develop what it calls a drone fleet, mass-producing a variety of unmanned systems to boost its defense.
The Ukrainians did this with drones in the Black Sea. They've been using drones very, very well to spot for their ground-based anti-ship systems.
Ukraine's use of drones to get an overhead view of the battlefield and attack Russian positions has highlighted the advantages of using drones, and Taiwan is following suit. At one of Taiwan's largest weapons expos, new kamikaze drones took center stage and showed off the country's progress. They're much cheaper than traditional missiles, and by swarming an enemy with dozens of these aircraft, they're much more likely to hit their target. But analysts say that Taiwan would need thousands of these drones to create an effective defense. And with more drones from countries like the US on the way, analysts say that the military will need to properly train its troops on how to use these systems.
Well, I think the war in Ukraine has taught us many lessons, but one of those lessons is that you can have a lot of fancy stuff, but if your troops are not adequately trained to use it, you're not going to have the success that you expect.
Taiwan says that more than 100 of these kamikaze drones will be built by 2025, and the military is hoping to incorporate more unmanned systems into its exercises in the coming years as it prepares for the future of warfare. Devin Tai and Jaime Ocon for TaiwanPlus.
Indonesian fishers in Taiwan have launched a campaign to demand Wi-Fi on all Taiwanese-flagged distant water vessels, and they're looking to standard setters overseas as part of their campaign. Eugene Huang has more in this part 3 of TaiwanPlus's deep dive into the issue.
One last job after months away at sea. This crew has returned from a trip to water near Japan. They work on a Taiwanese distant water fishing vessel, sailing far away from its home port most of the year. For Southeast Asian fishers like these, it used to be that time out at sea meant time without contact with friends and loved ones. But that's not the case anymore.
现在我们那个 WiFi 好用呢，30个小时，有时间你进去房间，拿手机，啊，爸爸好，跟那个姐姐妹妹啊，有讲话哦。
Internet access, something taken for granted on land, remains a luxury at sea, especially in the fishing industry. It's a tough job with long hours and captains trying to make as much money as they can on each voyage. But the policies of one territory have started to change that's affecting the whole industry. Starting in 2019, the UK territory of the Falkland Islands started requiring vessels to get a license to fish in its waters. And that standard includes Wi-Fi access for the whole crew. The Falkland Islands is small, but its waters are rich grounds for fishers. That means a license to fish there is a prized asset, one the Taiwan Squid and Sauri Association didn't want to miss out on. All of the vessels under its banner have now installed Wi-Fi on board, including the owner of this boat, Chen Songrong.
其实大家装设这个都是很心甘情愿的，他觉得说我这是一个必须要的，因为当我要去跟港口国洽谈渔业合作的时候，我就是要遵守对方的规定。
But this is just the first step. Less than 10% of Taiwan's 1,100 distant water fishing vessels have Wi-Fi installed, and no country has yet to ensure Wi-Fi access for all fishers in law.
那它的管理对象要求对象是外籍船，那对它的国内的产业并不会有这个成本提高，那进而影响到它的这个产业的经营。那但是我们台湾要来要求这个台湾籍的远洋渔船，那相对的就会对它的经营就会产生一个压力。
Even among the Taiwanese vessels that have installed Wi-Fi, conditions for workers vary considerably. Each fisher on Chen's vessel is allocated 30 megabytes per month, an amount that could be used up with just a few pictures, so communication is mostly through text. For the unlucky ones, Wi-Fi access is only granted in the Falkland Islands waters, while the lucky ones might be granted unlimited access for certain periods each day, like this man.
I'm very happy. I told you, I'm very happy. Our happiness is simple when you can communicate with your family. It's the simple way to be happy. No problem. You give the good service for us. We will give the best as I can to you.
Unequal access is something Taiwanese human rights activists believe is down to a lack of regulation, with government subsidies meant to encourage boat owners, leading to inconsistent results.
补助方式也意味着，那就会有业者不愿意配合，那这样就会有渔工没办法跟其他渔工一样享有权利，那这个也会涉及一种制度性的歧视。
Until Taiwan comes up with a legal guarantee for Wi-Fi access, campaigners say they'll continue to make noise. For fishers to enjoy a transparent working environment and to be able to stay connected to their loved ones, rights that many other people take for granted. Kamashi, Klein Wang, Edmund, P.G. Zhang, and Eugene Huang for TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching Here's What Happened. You can visit the TaiwanPlus website or our social media for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Finally, check out the Miffy exhibition happening now in Kaohsiung. The popular cartoon rabbit has had a makeover from more than 100 artists from around the region. I'm Rik Glauert, take care, and we'll see you next week.